Welcome, curious minds, to the deep dive. Have you ever felt like the world of technology is accelerating so fast that it's almost impossible to keep up? Like, every single day, there's some new breakthrough promising to change. Well, pretty much everything. You can feel a bit dizzying, right? Like trying to drink from a fire hose of information.
Yeah, it really can. Information overload is definitely a thing these days.
That's exactly why we're here today. My name is Vlad, and on this deep dive, our mission is, well, to cut through all that noise. We've taken a pretty comprehensive new report, the McKinsey Technology Trends Outlook 2025. It highlights what they call a baker's dozen of frontier technologies, and we're going to distill it down. Get to the most crucial insights, maybe some surprising facts, and those, aha moments that genuinely arm you with knowledge. Think of this as your shortcut, sort of, to being truly well-informed about what's coming next, and maybe more importantly, how it shapes your future. So, okay, let's unpack this. What's truly shaping our future right now?
And that's precisely what this McKinsey report helps us do. It gives us a fact-based, pretty rigorous look at the innovations driving, well, transformative change. Across global business, yes, but also addressing some really critical challenges we face as a society. It's structured basically into three main categories. There's the AI revolution, which we'll dive into first. Then you've got the compute and connectivity frontiers. Think of that as the digital backbone. And finally, cutting-edge engineering, which is, literally reshaping our physical world. But what immediately jumps out, and this is key, is the overarching role of artificial intelligence. It's not just one trend among many. It's really acting as an amplifier, accelerating progress across almost all the others.
An amplifier. That's a really powerful framing. So AI isn't just a trend, it's maybe the trend making everything else move faster. Which brings us right into our first major section then.
Yeah.
The AI revolution. I mean, it feels impossible to talk about the future of tech without starting here because, like you said, AI is just foundational.
Exactly. Foundational is the right word. The core idea here is that AI isn't just, a powerful wave on its own. It's the fundamental technology that's speeding up progress across nearly all the other frontier trends McKinsey identified. It unlocks new possibilities, really, by creating these synergies at the intersections of different technologies. So think of it less like a standalone tool and more like a catalyst, right? Speeding up innovations everywhere.
Okay, like a catalyst. Can you give some examples of that amplification?
Sure. So, for instance, take robotics. AI dramatically accelerates robot training. It lets machines learn and adapt much, much faster than before. Or in bioengineering, AI is pushing scientific discoveries forward, speeding up things like drug development, helping predict protein structures, stuff that used to take ages. And even in energy systems, AI optimizes power grids, it predicts demand. That helps enhance reliability and sustainability. It's enabling breakthroughs far beyond just its immediate applications.
That's a truly powerful vision of the future then, this idea of AI as the great accelerant. But, I mean, with all this excitement, what are the challenges? Because surely a technology this transformative doesn't come without its hurdles, right?
Right.
So what does this all mean for us practically?
Yeah, you're right to ask that. Absolutely. Realizing AI's full impact, well, it requires overcoming some pretty significant challenges. We're talking about managing immense computing intensity. That translates directly to massive energy demands and significant infrastructure investment, data centers, specialized chips, the works.
The energy piece is huge.
It is. And then there's the need to reduce deployment costs.
Yeah.
They're still quite high for the real cutting-edge AI. And maybe most critically, we need really thoughtful approaches to safety, governance, and workforce adaptation. This isn't just a technical problem, it's a societal one. Yet these challenges, they also create immense opportunities, right, for industry leaders, policymakers, entrepreneurs, opportunities to build the necessary frameworks, the ethical guidelines, the educational programs to harness this power responsibly.
That makes sense. Yeah. And it leads us perfectly into a specific kind of rapidly emerging facet of this AI revolution. Agentic AI, the concept of virtual coworkers, really captures the imagination. What exactly is it? What makes it so different from the AI we've seen before?
Okay, agentic AI. It refers to an AI system that can independently plan and execute complex, multi-step tasks. So unlike, say, a chatbot that just responds to your queries or a traditional automation script that follows really rigid rules, an agentic AI is actually designed to act in the world. It can use digital tools, much like a human would, to achieve a goal.
Okay, so it does things, not just answers things.
Exactly. Think of it as moving from AI that answers to AI that does. And that's a profound shift because it means these systems can handle unpredictable, complex tasks, stuff that was previously impossible to hard code. They essentially act as truly autonomous digital teammates. Yeah, they can interact with digital tools designed for humans, like, reading websites or filling out forms, and you can instruct them in natural language, just like you would a human colleague. And crucially, they can also describe their actions, generate understandable work plans. That allows for human guidance and feedback, which is vital.
That is a huge leap towards true digital delegation almost. Can you give us some real-world examples? Where is this actually being developed right now?
Yeah, we're seeing rapid progress, particularly in general purpose agent platforms. OpenAI's Operator, for instance, reportedly can autonomously perform web-based tasks, booking flights, ordering groceries, that sort of thing. Manus AI is positioned as a flexible digital teammate for research and writing. And Google's Gemini 2.5 Flash, well, it includes browser automation features. It lets agents visit sites, click buttons, extract data, all based on natural language prompts.
So the big players are definitely pushing this.
Oh, absolutely. It shows a clear trend. They're rapidly pushing out platforms that allow AIs to do things online. It's a definite pivot from just conversational AI towards autonomous digital action.
Interesting. What about that multi-step reasoning you mentioned?
Right, that's another fascinating development. Developers are starting to use these manager agents, which can delegate tasks to more specialized sub-agents.
Mm.
This leads to more accurate, more context-aware outputs. McKinsey's own Quantum Black Labs, for example, they used agentic workflows to automate credit memo drafting for a bank. And they found it increased analyst productivity by up to 60%. That really showcases how these systems can break down and execute complex processes effectively.
60%. That's significant.
It really is. And for you, the listener, this points towards a future where, increasingly complex tasks that currently demand a lot of human time could potentially be delegated to these digital assistants.
Are there more specific business solutions emerging already beyond those general platforms?
Absolutely, loads of them, actually. In software development, you've got AnySphere's Cursor, which automates coding from natural language descriptions. For cybersecurity, Darktrace uses autonomous AI agents modeled on the human immune system, interestingly, to detect and respond to complex cyber threats in real time.
Wow.
Yeah. And Salesforce's Agentforce deploys autonomous agents for customer support and sales, handling things like resolving tickets or qualifying leads. And then there are these deep research knowledge agents, tools from Google, Perplexity, OpenAI. They can autonomously conduct multi-step explorations, evaluate sources, synthesize comprehensive reports. It drastically accelerates knowledge generation.
The idea of AIs talking to each other, though,
Yeah.
that still sounds a bit sci-fi. Is that really happening? What are the implications?
It definitely is happening. Anthropic has its Model Context Protocol, or MCP, which standardizes how AI models integrate and share data with external tools. And Google's got its Agent-to-Agent Protocol, A2A they call it. It facilitates secure collaboration between AI agents, even across different vendors. They already have over 50 partners signed up.
50 partners. Okay.
Yeah, and this enables use cases like automated candidate sourcing or coordinating complex supply chains. And crucially, it often costs less than AI to human interaction, making these multi-agent systems more economically viable.
But that level of autonomy must raise concerns, right?
Oh, absolutely. With all this autonomy and inter-AI communication, concerns about trust, governance, liability, they're rising fast and heavily influencing development. I mean, as these agents start executing financial transactions or acting across different legal jurisdictions, questions of accountability become paramount. It really underscores the need for robust guardrails.
That's definitely. So given this rapid development, how's the talent market responding? Are we seeing a big surge in demand for new skills related to this?
We certainly are. It's quite dramatic, actually. Job postings specifically for agentic AI surged by an astonishing 985% from 2023 to 2024.
Wow, 985%.
Yeah, although it's important to note that was from a pretty small base to begin with. But still, a huge jump. The roles in highest demand: software engineers, data scientists, data engineers, and there's strong demand for skills like Python, machine learning, and of course the newer field of prompt engineering. This shift is really reshaping the workforce. We're moving away from just deterministic coding towards higher order activities like task planning and orchestrating these sophisticated AI tools.
So where are we then in terms of actual adoption? Is this stuff broadly deployed yet, or is it still mostly early days experiments?
According to McKinsey's assessment, agentic AI is still at what they call adoption score 2. That essentially means experimentation.
Okay, so still early.
Still early, yeah. Organizations are testing small-scale prototypes, usually without a major focus on immediate ROI. It's still largely untested in real-world business contexts, but And this is important. The report stresses that given the sheer speed of advancements, deployment could accelerate very, very quickly. The ultimate degree of autonomy these agents will achieve, that remains uncertain, as does the ongoing need for human oversight as they become more sophisticated.
Right.
But what's truly fascinating here, I think, is how agentic AI really shifts the dynamic. From passive tools to active collaborators in our workflows, it's no longer just about getting an output, right? It's about delegating an entire process. And this raises a crucial question, really, for you listening. How do we ensure these virtual colleagues operate with accountability? How do we build lasting trust, especially as they gain more independence and weave themselves into our daily work?
That's a huge question. Okay, so from these intelligent agents, let's maybe step back a bit to the broader picture of artificial intelligence itself. The report calls it the everywhere revolution. If agentic AI is about intelligent actions, what does the overarching AI trend encompass? What's its potential impact on our future?
Right. So artificial intelligence, in this broader sense, it refers to computer systems performing tasks that typically require human intelligence, using algorithms and data, to recognize patterns, make decisions, learn over time. And the most effective solutions we're seeing now often blend multiple forms of AI. Generative models creating content, analytical engines finding insights, and increasingly, agentic AI taking action. This convergence is quietly reshaping how businesses operate, how we interact with technology every single day.
And adoption is pretty widespread already, isn't it?
It is, quite significantly. The report says 78% of organizations use AI in at least one business function already, and 92% plan to invest more.
Wow, 92%.
Yeah, huge numbers. However, only 1% are considered fully mature in their AI adoption. That indicates a massive gap between current application and, well, the full potential. A key factor driving this is accessibility. The cost of deploying powerful models is dropping sharply, and there's a whole new generation of smaller, more domain-specific models emerging. That broadens access, integrating AI into everything from our smartphones to industrial equipment.
That really does make it an everywhere revolution then.
Yeah.
What are some of the latest developments fueling this? Especially in areas like multimodality. That sounds interesting.
Multimodality is a big one. That's the ability to process and generate not just text, but also images, video, audio. It's opening up entirely new creative and scientific frontiers. Gartner projects that by 2027, 40% of generative AI solutions will be multimodal. That's a huge jump from just 1% back in 2023.
40%.
Yeah. This versatility really enhances the quality and the range of what AI can do. From real-time voice generation to advanced coding capabilities that use text, images, even code repositories altogether. We're also seeing what the report calls a small model explosion. These are highly capable, domain-specific AI models. Think Anthropic's Haiku or Google's Flash, derived from larger parent models.
Right, smaller but still powerful.
Exactly. They deliver high-quality outputs, but with significantly less computing power. That drastically reduces costs and energy consumption. And that means AI can be integrated into a vast array of devices, right? From phones to trucks, making it truly ubiquitous.
It sounds like AI is not just changing what we do, but fundamentally how we do it, from the smallest apps on our phones to the biggest global strategies, and it's all moving at just breathtaking speed. Given this velocity, how are the talent and labor markets adapting? Is it keeping pace?
Well, the talent landscape is definitely evolving rapidly. After a bit of a pullback in 2023, 2024 saw renewed hiring for data scientists and engineers. Companies are really looking to embed AI deeper into their workflows now. Software roles seem to have stabilized, and positions focused on product and solutions are growing. That reflects an emphasis on actual business integration, not just the tech itself.
But are there enough skilled people?
That's the challenge. 46% of leaders still cite skill gaps as a major barrier. There are critical shortages in machine learning, Python, data science, cloud infrastructure, especially AWS skills seem hard to find. The future workforce really needs to be adept at human-AI collaboration. It's shifting towards more symbiotic relationships with these intelligent systems.
Okay, so overall, we're scaling in progress for AI, but what are the big uncertainties? What are the major hurdles AI still faces as it keeps expanding so fast?
There are several major uncertainties. Cybersecurity and privacy are huge ones, particularly concerns around data leakage and vulnerabilities involving protected customer or corporate data. Then there are the ethical concerns: data governance, justice, fairness, accountability, explainability. These persist and are really complex.
Hmm.
Growing regulatory efforts could also significantly impact research and applications, especially around things like copyright ownership for content generated by open source models. That's a tricky area.
Right, the legal frameworks are trying to catch up.
Exactly. And don't forget the environmental impact. Training these exponentially expanding models requires vast computational resources, raising serious sustainability issues that could even hinder future innovation if not addressed. Furthermore, potential supply bottlenecks think specialized chips, again, energy needs for all this AI infrastructure, and even diminishing high-quality training data. These are all significant constraints looking forward.
So a lot to navigate there.
Definitely. And it leads to a critical question for you, the listener, to ponder. How will the economics of these smaller, specialized, and open-source AI models potentially shift the balance of power away from the giant, monolithic frontier models? And what does that shift mean for innovation and accessibility in the coming years?
Interesting point. Okay, so from the brains of AI, let's turn now to the digital backbone that supports it all. Compute and connectivity frontiers. This section of the report really digs into how AI is fundamentally reshaping our digital infrastructure and, well, what that means for our future global reach, doesn't it?
Precisely. It's the physical and network layer that makes all this AI possible.
Let's start with application-specific semiconductors. The report calls them tailored powerhouses. These are purpose-built chips, optimized for specific tasks like large-scale AI training. Why do these matter so much for the future?
Well, they matter because they offer just vastly superior speed, energy efficiency, and performance compared to general-purpose CPUs, but for their specific tasks. Especially for the incredibly demanding workloads like large-scale AI training and inference, we're talking mainly about GPUs, graphics processing units, which are great for parallel processing, and ASICs, application-specific integrated circuits, which are custom-designed for very particular workloads.
So specialized tools for a specialized job.
Exactly. And these are absolutely crucial for future business growth and, frankly, for the continued advancement of AI itself. And what's happening now is this intense competition brewing. Tech giants, Amazon, Google, Meta, Microsoft, they're all investing heavily in designing their own custom ASICs.
Why? To get an edge.
Partly, yes, to optimize for their specific workloads, but also critically, to reduce their reliance on third-party suppliers like NVIDIA, who currently dominate the GPU market for AI. For example, Google has its 7th-generation TPU called Ironwood. It offers significantly more compute capacity and high-bandwidth memory HBM than its predecessors. This race for specialized silicon is really fueling the AI revolution.
Okay, if we connect this to the bigger picture then, these specialized chips are literally the engines driving the AI revolution.
Yeah.
But you mentioned the race to produce them. It sounds like it's now tangled up with global competition, complex supply chains. Does that pose risks? Can we scale fast enough without significant geopolitical risks?
That's a profound concern, absolutely. This huge demand for higher computing capacity is driving massive expansion in data centers and, consequently, in manufacturing supply for these chips. McKinsey's analysis suggests AI-ready data center capacity could rise something like 33% annually between 2023 and 2030.
33% a year. That's enormous.
It is, eventually accounting for about 70% of total data center demand by 2030. This requires immense expansion of manufacturing capacity. And that raises concerns about long-term demand sustainability, but also about geopolitical stability and supply chain resilience.
Right, because manufacturing is concentrated in certain regions.
Exactly. For example, TSMC, a leading manufacturer based in Taiwan, is expanding significantly into the United States with a massive $165 billion investment in Phoenix. That's a strategic move, clearly, aimed at technology sovereignty and shoring up supply chain resilience for the U.S. It's not just about security, it's about owning the next wave of value creation.
So for our listener then, thinking about these powerhouses of computation, what are the big questions they should be pondering?
Well, I think you should consider these sorts of questions for the future. How will this increased demand for AI-specific architectures reshape the entire semiconductor market? What strategies will semiconductor companies use to try and overcome the talent shortage and the skills gap, especially in chip design? And maybe most importantly, how will shifting geopolitical alliances reshape the global footprint for semiconductor design, manufacturing, and overall supply chain resilience? These are really strategic, long-term considerations that will define the very foundation of our digital future.
Definitely things to watch. Okay, from the chips that power the digital world, let's move to the networks that connect it all. Advanced connectivity, the report says this goes beyond the wires. It's more than just faster internet, isn't it? What's pushing us beyond the wires?
Oh, absolutely. Much more than just faster internet speeds. Advanced connectivity encompasses a whole suite of evolving technologies designed to enhance and expand digital communication networks. This includes things like wireless low power networks for IoT devices, the continued rollout of 5G, and importantly, the groundwork being laid for 6G cellular systems. Also, next generation Wi Fi standards like Wi Fi 6 and 7, and the rapidly expanding networks of low Earth orbit or LEO satellites.
Okay, so a whole collection of technologies.
Exactly. And it's all crucial for supporting the demands of AI, big data, immersive experiences, you name it. It also offers immense opportunities for telecommunications companies to evolve, potentially from just being value connectors to becoming real value creators by offering new services on top of these networks.
How is 5G progressing, and what's this about 6G enabling sensing?
Well, the 5G rollout has laid a critical foundation. We saw 5G Advanced, or 5.5G, being commercialized in 2024. But while 5G focuses mainly on bandwidth and reliability improvements, 6G, which is still in the research phase, aims to actually enable sensing for data generation. Imagine networks that can perceive the physical environment.
Wow, sensing.
Yeah. South Korea, for instance, is aiming for 6G commercialization as early as 2028. We're also seeing key developments in things like network slicing. That uses software-defined networking to create flexible, efficient network management tailored to specific performance needs. T-Mobile's T-Priority Slice, for example, gives first responders up to 5 times more bandwidth in congested areas.
Useful. And private networks.
That market is booming. Private wireless networks are projected to grow from about $6 billion to over $32 billion by 2032. That's huge growth. They deliver flexible, tailored connectivity, often beyond just local facilities. Airbus, for instance, is expanding private 5G across its European locations to support its complex manufacturing operations.
That is a huge leap. Our networks could literally be sensing the world around us. You also mentioned satellites. What about direct-to-satellite networks? Is that becoming mainstream?
It's definitely moving beyond niche applications. What they call non-terrestrial networks, or NTNs, are becoming a reality. These are wireless systems operating above the Earth's satellites. LEO satellites are the main focus right now. SpaceX's Starlink, for instance, initiated a direct-to-cell service. That allows standard smartphones to connect directly to their satellites for messaging and emergency calls, even in remote areas with no cell towers.
So no special phone needed.
Exactly. That's the game changer. It's truly expanding global communication coverage, especially helpful for remote or underserved areas.
Okay, so what does this all really mean for how we stay connected? And what's coming next? What are the big questions we should be asking ourselves about this connected future?
Well, you should probably consider: what new opportunities does advanced connectivity, especially when combined with other trends like AI and IoT, offer to improve growth and profitability, particularly for the telecom industry? How will these constellations of LEO satellites and direct-to-device satellite connectivity really reshape global communications and the competitive dynamics in that market? And critically, given the geopolitical tensions we discussed earlier, how should organizations think about and navigate concerns about the security and resilience of vital undersea cables? These are increasingly seen as potential targets in this interconnected world.
Good points. Okay, so our digital backbone relies not just on connectivity, but also on where the actual computing power lives. That brings us neatly to cloud and edge computing. The report talks about distributed power. What does that mean, and why is it so vital right now?
Right. Cloud and edge computing. It's all about distributing workloads across various locations, not just in massive remote hyperscale data centers, but also in regional hubs, and even right down to local nodes or devices. That's the edge. The whole goal is to optimize performance by addressing crucial factors like latency, how long it takes data to travel, data transfer costs, data sovereignty requirements, and of course, security.
And why is this distribution so important now?
What makes it particularly vital now is how fundamentally AI is reshaping this entire landscape. The sheer computational demands of AI have disrupted basically all layers of the cloud stack, from the semiconductors we just talked about, right up to data center design and operation. Global demand for data center capacity, driven largely by AI, could rise, as we mentioned, maybe 19 to 22% annually through 2030. That could more than triple current demand.
Crippling demand.
Yeah. We see massive projects reflecting this. Meta developing specialized GPU cluster networks just for distributed AI training. Or the rumored Stargate project, potentially a $500 billion investment over several years just to build new AI infrastructure for OpenAI. The scale is just enormous.
That is an incredible demand for power and resources. How are companies actually overcoming these constraints? What innovations are happening in this space?
Well, they're employing several key strategies. First, location, location, location. They're moving to new areas, expanding into places with better infrastructure, and, crucially, more available power. Think places like Indiana and Iowa in the U.S., or even Nordic countries emerging as potential AI hubs due to their cooler climates and renewable energy
At
access.
purchasing geographical shifts.
Definitely. Second, they're exploring creative power solutions. Data centers are adopting more sustainable approaches using batteries to store power during off-peak times, deploying advanced liquid cooling systems, using AI itself to manage thermal loads more efficiently. Microsoft, for example, introduced a water-efficient, closed-loop, chip-level cooling system, much more efficient than traditional air cooling.
Okay, and third.
Third is distributing the workloads themselves. Smaller AI models can increasingly run locally right on edge devices, which reduces the load on central data centers. And even for the larger models, the training and inference processes are being distributed across multiple clusters. This spreads the processing load, reduces latency for users, and improves overall system resilience. AWS, for instance, demonstrated training the Llama 2.7b model much faster and cheaper by splitting the model across 128 servers and chips.
It sounds like a much more strategic approach to computing, especially with those rising concerns about data security and privacy. Is the idea of sovereign cloud becoming more important because of that?
It absolutely is. There's definitely increasing demand for data and compute to be hosted locally or at least regionally. This is driven by security concerns, data privacy regulations like GDPR, and those geopolitical risks we keep mentioning. Sovereign clouds essentially ensure that data storage and processing occur within specific national or regional boundaries. This helps safeguard regional interests and really simplifies compliance with local data protection laws. Oracle, for example, expanded its sovereign cloud offerings to cover the entire European Union in 2024. We're seeing similar initiatives elsewhere.
Right?
So this raises a really important question for the future. As AI demands exponentially more computing power, how do we ensure that the digital infrastructure of our future is not only powerful, but also sustainable, secure, and respectful of data sovereignty? It's a complex balancing act.
A huge challenge indeed. So, for our listener, thinking about the future of distributed computing, what are the big questions to keep in mind?
Okay, I think you should ask, how can cloud providers effectively reduce their energy consumption and carbon footprint given this massive growth? That's critical. How can companies ensure data sovereignty and compliance when they're operating in these complex multi-cloud environments? And related to that, will we see regionally dominant cloud providers emerge because of these pressures, and maybe strategically? How should organizations dynamically optimize their workloads across cloud, edge, and their own on-premises platforms, considering the constantly evolving costs, capabilities, and regulations? These are crucial strategic considerations for anyone building or using digital infrastructure going forward.
Very practical points. Okay, we've talked about the brains of AI and the digital backbone supporting it. Now let's step into another frontier, immersive reality technologies. The report says this will take us beyond the screen. This always sounds like something out of a movie, right? But it's becoming very real, isn't it? Okay, Vlad, let's unpack this a bit. Are we getting closer to a world where we can really touch, see, maybe even taste virtual experiences? And importantly, what does that mean for our privacy and safety?
It is becoming much more real, Vlad. Absolutely. Immersive reality technologies, it's an umbrella term, right? It covers augmented reality, AR, virtual reality, VR, and mixed reality, MR. This includes the hardware like smart glasses and VR headsets, but also advanced haptic feedback systems, things that let you feel virtual objects, and increasingly AI-powered enhancements that improve rendering, tracking, and processing to make the experience more seamless and realistic.
And it's not just for gaming anymore.
Not at all. While gaming and entertainment are still the most visible sectors, these technologies have huge potential to transform experiences across many industries. Think marketing, product prototyping, complex training simulations, even healthcare procedures. They allow for the creation of safe, controlled environments where people can practice skills or experiment in ways that would be difficult or dangerous in the real world.
Right, the training aspect seems particularly powerful.
It is. And despite some headsets historically underperforming expectations, there's definitely renewed investment and interest. Apple's Vision Pro, which shipped in early 2024, was seen as a milestone, especially its Persona feature, which uses AI and AR to create these surprisingly realistic digital avatars for virtual interaction.
I saw demos of that, yeah.
And beyond entertainment, look at healthcare. Dr. Joaquin Sanchez-Sotelo performed the first mixed reality navigated shoulder replacement surgery at the Mayo Clinic in 2024. He used holograms overlaid on the patient for incredible precision.
Wow, surgery using holograms.
Yeah. And in industrial applications, New Balance apparently used VR to drastically shorten the time it takes to build physical shoe prototypes from something like 45 days down to 7 days or less. This shows immersive tech is really starting to move into high-value, practical domains.
That's impressive progress.
What about the sensor experience itself? You mentioned haptics. Are we moving beyond just sight and sound in these virtual worlds?
We are. Haptic advancements are really starting to blur the line between reality and simulation. There are new ultra-low-power haptic actuators, wearable gloves, even full suits that can provide precise tactile feedback, simulating sensations like raindrops, textures, impacts.
Virtual touch, basically.
Exactly. And even virtual taste. Ohio State University developed something called e-taste technology. It uses chemical sensors and wireless microfluidic actuators to replicate flavors. Apparently, it achieved about 70% accuracy in human trials.
Virtual taste. Okay, that's wild. It is wild. And AI, of course, is playing a huge role here, too, significantly enhancing rendering quality, tracking accuracy, processing efficiency. There's a tool called Skybox AI by Blockade Labs. It's an AI-powered tool that can create these incredibly immersive 360-degree panoramic environments just from simple text prompts, really useful for gaming, VR simulations, education.
So putting it all together,
Yeah.
are we getting closer to that world where we can really touch, see, even taste virtual experiences?
Yeah.
And what does that mean for our privacy and safety? For our listener, what are the big questions looking forward for immersive reality?
Well, I think you should consider, how will the necessary hardware breakthroughs, lighter headsets, better battery life, wider fields of view, solving motion sickness, how will those shape immersive reality's journey from a niche novelty to maybe a truly general-purpose computing platform? What's the tipping point for this technology to move from just pilot projects to being deployed at scale in high-value domains like, say, managing energy infrastructure or advanced manufacturing? And maybe most importantly, what regulatory frameworks are going to be needed for safety, security, ethical use? Think about content moderation in virtual worlds, data privacy. These devices collect vast amounts of personal data like body movements, eye tracking. How do we manage that responsibly? These are crucial questions as we start to embrace this new dimension of interaction.
Definitely critical questions. Okay, as our digital world expands with AI and these immersive experiences, the need for security and trust becomes absolutely paramount. That brings us to digital trust and cybersecurity, which the report aptly calls the bedrock of the digital world. What exactly does this encompass, and why is it so critical for our shared future?
All right, this trend covers a wide range of technologies and practices, all designed to ensure our digital interactions are secure, transparent, and trustworthy. It's a broad umbrella, really. It includes traditional cybersecurity, but also things like AI, trust ensuring AI systems are fair, reliable, and explainable, and even technologies like blockchain for creating immutable records. Its criticality just stems from its fundamental role. It mitigates risks, safeguards assets, enables innovation. People won't use tech they don't trust, and it's essential for building strong customer relationships in this increasingly digitized and interconnected world. It's truly the license to operate online.
And AI is complicating this picture, isn't it? Both as a threat and a tool.
Absolutely. The rapid advance of AI highlights an urgent need for what the report calls AI trust. Interestingly, public trust in AI companies has actually declined recently from 61% in 2019 down to 53% today, according to some studies. And this matters for business because trusted brands significantly outperformed untrusted ones in stock market returns over the last several years. Trust equals value. So we're seeing initiatives like the ML Commons A Illuminate benchmark. It evaluates large language models for generating hazardous responses, hate speech, misinformation, etc. And they're expanding that to cover agentic AI too.
So building trust in the AI itself.
Exactly. But AI is also being used by attackers. They're increasingly exploiting generative AI and machine learning, often with greater effectiveness. Voice phishing or vishing attacks, for instance, apparently increased by something like 442% in the second half of 2024 alone.
Wow, that's a huge jump.
It is. So in response, organizations are adopting these same AI technologies to bolster their own threat detection and response capabilities. It's an arms race, essentially. Cisco, for example, made a huge $28 billion acquisition of Splunk to enhance its threat detection capabilities, and later acquired Robust Intelligence, an AI application security pioneer.
And geopolitical risks play a role here, too.
Definitely. Geopolitical risks have significantly intensified threats to digital trust and cybersecurity. We're seeing critical infrastructure like satellites and undersea cables become targets. There was the Salt Typhoon incident, a foreign state-sponsored cyber attack group that reportedly compromised several North American telcos in 2024. It really highlights the need for organizations to incorporate geopolitical factors into their cyber risk assessments now.
So it seems like trust is becoming even more crucial, but also harder to maintain.
Precisely. And this raises that important question again. In a world increasingly saturated with AI and complex digital interactions, trust isn't just a nice to have, right? It's the absolute license to operate. How do we ensure our digital future is built on a foundation of integrity and security, not just relentless innovation?
How does the talent market for digital trust and cybersecurity look in light of all this? Is there enough expertise?
Well, software-related roles remain central, naturally, with security analyst roles leading the demand. However, similar to some other tech fields, there's been an overall decline in job postings from a peak in 2022. But, and this is key in-demand skills like incident response, threat intelligence, and DevOps face substantial shortages. That reflects the urgent industry need for threat mitigation and automation skills. AI skills are also increasingly critical here, but also quite scarce.
So still significant talent gaps in crucial areas. What are the key uncertainties that digital trust and cybersecurity face looking ahead?
There are several big ones. There's that constant trade-off between security and usability. Stronger security measures often make systems harder or more inconvenient for legitimate users. Finding the right balance is tough. Explainable AI remains a significant challenge. There's really no one-size-fits-all approach yet to opening up the black box of these complex AI models so we can understand why they make certain decisions.
Right, the transparency issue.
Exactly. Data privacy and intellectual property concerns also persist. Companies are worried about their confidential data being inadvertently used to train third-party LLMs, for instance. Then there's the looming threat from quantum computing. Advances there raise serious concerns about the integrity of our current cryptographic systems. We need to prepare for post-quantum cryptography.
That's a big one down the road.
It is. And finally, the regulation of things like blockchain and tokenization is still very fragmented across different jurisdictions, which creates complexity and compliance challenges for global organizations.
Okay, a complex landscape for sure. Let's shift gears now to something truly on the bleeding edge. Quantum technologies. This always sounds like pure science fiction, doesn't it? The stuff of breaking currently unbreakable codes, revolutionizing computing itself. Here's where it gets really interesting, Vlad. We're talking about technology that could potentially solve problems far beyond what even our fastest supercomputers today can dream of tackling. But like you mentioned, it also raises some pretty big questions about security, especially encryption, and about who leads this entirely new frontier. So what does this all mean for the future of computation itself?
Quantum technologies really do represent a fundamental leap beyond traditional or classical computing. They work by harnessing the counterintuitive principles of quantum mechanics. There are essentially three main pillars to watch. First, quantum computing itself. This has the potential to solve certain types of problems that are simply infeasible for classical computers. Things like simulating complex quantum phenomena for material science or drug discovery, or as you mentioned, breaking some widely used encryption techniques.
The encryption breaking is the scary part for many.
It is a major concern, yes. The second pillar is quantum communication. This could potentially enable truly secure communication methods resistant to eavesdropping, using principles like quantum key distribution, QKD. And the third pillar is quantum sensing. Quantum sensors could offer far higher sensitivity and precision than conventional sensors for various applications, from medical imaging to navigation. And we are seeing momentum building. Major players have been announcing significant breakthroughs throughout 2025.
What kind of breakthroughs are we getting closer to practical machines?
Well, recent advances have really focused on overcoming the key technical barriers, particularly error correction and scalability. You need reliable quantum bits or qubits, and you need enough of them working together coherently. So we've seen progress in increasing qubit reliability and developing better real-time error mitigation techniques, which are essential for building fault-tolerant quantum computers someday. For instance, atom computing achieved a reported 99.6% 2-qubit gate fidelity. That's a measure of accuracy, which was the highest claimed for neutral atom qubits in a commercial system at the time.
And the big tech companies are heavily involved.
Oh, absolutely. The hyperscalers, AWS, Google, IBM, Microsoft are all aggressively pursuing leadership in this space. It's a very competitive field. Google announced its Willow chip in late 2024. They claimed it performed a specific benchmark computation in just 5 minutes that would take today's fastest supercomputer orders of magnitude longer. Though importantly, they noted it currently has no known real-world application. It's more of a demonstration of potential.
Right, a proof of concept.
Yeah. Exactly, and AWS unveiled its Ocelot system in early 2025 using a different approach called cat-qubit technology. They claim this could significantly speed up and reduce the hardware needed for error correction, potentially cutting costs by 90% and accelerating the timeline for practical quantum computing by maybe 5 years. If true, that's significant.
That would be huge.
Yeah.
Are there global efforts involved too, beyond just the big companies?
Definitely. Quantum innovation hubs have grown significantly. There are now something like 34 countries with dedicated national quantum programs, and the United Nations even declared 2025 the International Year of Quantum Science and Technology, which helps raise awareness and foster collaboration. We see tangible investments, too. IBM opened its first European quantum data center in Germany in late 2024. NVIDIA is building an accelerated quantum research center in Boston, specifically focused on integrating quantum hardware with AI supercomputers. It's definitely a global race, but with significant international collaboration happening as well.
So with all this activity, what's the current adoption status for quantum technologies? Is it still mainly confined to research labs, or is it getting closer to real-world impact?
It's still very much at adoption score 1, according to McKinsey. That means frontier innovation.
Okay, so still nascent.
Very nascent, yes. Few organizations are actively investing in or applying it yet, and it's largely unproven in a practical business context. The focus remains primarily on research and development. Early-stage systems are mainly used for testing algorithms and exploring potential use cases. The key uncertainties remain significant. There are the technical challenges managing a sufficient quantity and quality of qubits, keeping them stable long enough to do useful calculations. That's incredibly hard. And there's the cost-effectiveness issue. For most business calculations today, traditional supercomputers are still far more cost-effective. It's unclear when or which quantum components will actually reach a point of quantum advantage that makes economic sense for businesses.
Right.
So what does this all mean for the future of computation itself? Well, some questions for you to consider, Vlad, and for our listeners. When is quantum technology likely to reach those major milestones we hear about, like full error correction or achieving quantum advantage that's genuinely relevant for businesses, or maybe even defeating current RSA encryption standards? And perhaps just as importantly, how will the geopolitical dynamics and emerging regulatory frameworks shape this global race to develop, commercialize, and ultimately control quantum technologies? It's a high-stakes game.
Very high stakes indeed. Okay, we've covered the AI revolution and the digital backbone. Now let's explore how technology is literally reshaping our physical world through what the report calls cutting-edge engineering. This brings us to new frontiers in robotics, mobility, bioengineering, space, and even energy systems. A lot to cover here.
Indeed, this is where the digital meets the physical in really transformative ways.
Let's start with the future of robotics. For decades, robots have mostly been bolted to the floor on assembly lines, right? But the report says we're moving beyond the assembly line.
Right.
Okay, Vlad, let's unpack this a bit. Are we talking about, the sci-fi robots that serve us coffee and walk the dog? Or is it more about just smarter, more flexible machines on the factory floor? And crucially, how will we as humans adapt to working side by side with them more often?
It's a bit of both, actually, but maybe leaning more towards smarter, more adaptable machines for now. It really means advancements in autonomous and semi-autonomous robots that can perceive and adapt to real-life inputs with increasing degrees of autonomy and dexterity. This includes not just industrial arms, but also mobile robots and, yes, even humanoid robots. Interest in these definitely surged beyond just industrial settings in 2024.
And AI is key here, too.
Absolutely essential. The same AI foundation models that underpin chatbots and image generators are now being trained to control robots. This allows them to respond much more flexibly in novel situations, not just repeat pre-programmed tasks. This combination, new form factors like humanoids plus more flexible AI control systems, could lead to more multi-purpose or maybe even general-purpose robots down the line.
So robots doing a wider variety of tasks.
Potentially, yes. We're seeing more deployment beyond traditional manufacturing manufacturing, think airports, large retail stores, even restaurants are experimenting. The market for service robots in logistics, hospitality, agriculture is growing much faster than industrial robots, maybe 20% to 35% annually. And there's also growing interest in cobots, collaborative robots, specifically designed to work safely alongside human workers in shared spaces.
Okay, but what about the challenges? Are they still significant? Can they really operate effectively outside controlled environments?
Oh, the challenges are still very significant. Power is a big one. State-of-the-art humanoids, for example, can often operate for only about 4 hours before needing a couple of hours to recharge. That limits their practical use time.
Right, not a full workday yet.
Not yet. Balance, just staying upright on 2 feet, is surprisingly difficult mechanically. And dexterity, especially for hand-like devices, is often much slower and less adaptable than human hands. Sometimes simple suction cups are still more effective for grasping objects.
Interesting. So what are the latest developments trying to tackle these? You mentioned foundation models.
Right, that's a major development area. Using these large AI models, specifically foundation models, for robotics. Covariant, for example, introduced something called RFM1. It's a robotics foundation model they claim gives robots more human-like reasoning capabilities, understanding how objects interact, following natural language instructions, even reflecting on their actions to improve.
Giving robots common sense, almost.
That's the goal, yeah. Figure AI introduced Helix, which is a vision language action VLA model. They showed it enabling their humanoid robot to perform complex tasks like understanding spoken requests and putting away groceries. And the humanoid robot development itself is advancing rapidly. Boston Dynamics introduced their new Electric Atlas, a fully electric humanoid designed for industrial settings. Hyundai plans to deploy it in their auto manufacturing plants as a cobot.
So, humanoids in factories soon.
It seems likely, at least in pilot stages. Tesla's Optimus robot, designed for more general-purpose tasks, is also under development. And Agility Robotics' Digit humanoid robot is already seeing pilot deployments in logistics warehouses, doing tasks like moving totes and stacking pallets.
Okay, so how far along are we then in terms of widespread adoption? Is this scaling up quickly? And what are the key uncertainties shaping the future of robotics?
Well, according to the report, robotics, especially these advanced forms, is still at adoption score 2, which means experimentation.
Still experimenting.
Mostly, yes. While there are definitely piloting initiatives happening, especially in warehouses and manufacturing, very few companies outside of those sectors, or maybe e-commerce, are really scaling this technology broadly yet, particularly for the general-purpose use cases. Key uncertainties. A big one is developing robust risk and trust frameworks as these more autonomous robots enter the workforce beyond traditional, highly controlled manufacturing environments. Think about liability if an AI-driven robot makes a mistake, or safety protocols for human-robot collaboration. International standards are still lacking there. And of course, there are the public fears about job displacement, especially with humanoids potentially taking on more advanced tasks previously done by humans. That necessitates really thoughtful approaches to workforce adaptation and reskilling.
Yeah, the jobs question is always front and center.
It is. So for you, the listener, maybe a thought to consider. What new ethical and regulatory challenges will emerge as AI becomes more deeply embedded in robotics? Especially as these machines gain more autonomy and become more integrated into our daily lives and even our decision-making processes.
Important things to grapple with. Okay, from robots transforming our workplaces, let's talk about how we'll actually get around in the future. The report dives into the future of mobility, promising to move us smarter, cleaner. What does this entail beyond just the electric cars we hear so much about?
Right. The future of mobility covers a really wide range of technologies, all aimed at improving transportation efficiency, safety, and crucially, sustainability. Yes, it includes electric vehicles, EVs, but also autonomous vehicles, AVs, delivery drones, urban air mobility, UAM, think electric vertical takeoff and landing aircraft, or eVTOLs, sometimes called flying taxis, and also micromobility like e-scooters and e-bikes.
So a whole ecosystem of new transport modes.
Exactly. And it's all about integrating AI, advanced sensors, better connectivity to try and revolutionize not just personal transport, but also logistics, urban planning, even energy systems that need to support all this electrification.
How is the EV transition progressing globally? It seems a bit uneven.
It is quite uneven. EV sales growth has slowed in some regions, like the U.S., where it was only about 7% in 2024. That's partly due to high initial costs and maybe some ending tax credits. But in China, sales jumped nearly 36% in the same period, driven by strong demand, better charging infrastructure, and ongoing government incentives. European BEV costs are also becoming more competitive with gasoline cars. Automakers globally are definitely planning more affordable EV models to try and broaden adoption.
And autonomous vehicles. Are we getting closer to widespread driverless cars?
Well, progress is being made, but hurdles remain. Shared AV services are operating commercially in several cities now, places like Los Angeles, Phoenix, San Francisco. However, the overall adoption timelines seem to have slipped by maybe 2 or 3 years compared to earlier predictions. There are still significant technical obstacles, high operational costs for the companies running them, and persistent public skepticism. About half the public still cites safety concerns in surveys.
Trust is still an issue there, too.
Definitely. But companies are pushing ahead. Waymo, for example, expanded its autonomous ride-hailing service to LA and Austin in 2024, significantly increasing the number of rides they provided. They're also exploring entering the Japanese market in 2025. And in trucking, Kodiak Robotics launched its first commercial driverless operations, meaning no safety driver on board in West Texas in early 2025, transporting things like fracking sand in pretty harsh conditions. That's a significant step for autonomous trucking.
Drones are also becoming more commercialized, aren't they? We see them buzzing around more. And that dream of flying taxis, how close are we really to that?
Yes, delivery drone services are definitely expanding. The market is projected to reach maybe $29 billion globally by 2034. That's a huge growth rate. Amazon Prime Air has resumed its drone deliveries after some pauses, and Walmart is significantly expanding its drone delivery services through partnerships with companies like Wing and Zipline.
So drone delivery is becoming more common.
It seems likely, yes. As for flying taxis, the eVTOL aircraft industry is making steady progress towards regulatory certification for carrying paying passengers. Manufacturers like Urcher Aviation, with their Midnight Air Taxi, and Joby Aviation are advancing through the complex FAA certification process. Limited commercial passenger operations could potentially start within the next year or so, likely on very specific pre-approved routes initially.
Okay, so maybe not citywide chaos just yet. What about micromobility, scooters and bikes?
That sector showed resilience. After some earlier issues with oversupply in business models, new products like micro-EVs, tiny enclosed electric vehicles, and lower e-bike costs spurred renewed demand. We saw consolidation with companies like Bird and Lime becoming dominant players, and cities are increasingly integrating micromobility options into their overall public transport systems. Electrified two-wheelers are particularly popular in Asia and Europe.
So what does this all really mean for how we get around day to day? It sounds like we're genuinely reimagining transportation from the ground up and even expanding into the air and maybe even water. What are the big questions we should be asking about this transformative future of mobility?
Yeah, it's a broad transformation I think you should consider. How will changing geopolitics, especially around critical minerals needed for batteries, affect the mobility supply chain? That's a big vulnerability. How will the development of central mobility hubs, places where you can easily switch between different modes like trains, AVs, scooters, eVTOLs, and connected transport networks, reshape our urban landscapes and daily commuting patterns? What are the implications of relying on public infrastructure investment versus private investment to build out things like EV charging networks or vertiports for eVTOLs? Who pays and who benefits? And critically, how will shifts in regulation ultimately determine the speed and the scale of adoption for things like AVs, drones, and these other next-generation transport systems? Regulation is often the gatekeepers here.
Absolutely. Okay, from moving things around, let's turn to something even more fundamental, the future of bioengineering. The report talks about engineering life itself. This sounds incredibly powerful, maybe even a bit intimidating. What exactly does it involve?
Bioengineering is essentially the application of engineering principles and design methodologies to biological systems. It leverages technological advancements, most notably things like gene editing, CRISPR is the famous example, and synthetic biology, which involves designing and building new biological parts, devices, and systems. Its purpose is incredibly broad, potentially improving human health and performance, transforming food and agriculture value chains, creating innovative new materials and products.
And AI is playing a big role here too, I imagine.
Hugely important. AI is dramatically accelerating research and development in bioengineering and helping to reduce costs. It's used for processing vast biological data sets, screening potential drug candidates, designing and testing new biomaterials much faster than humans could alone. A really notable example. The 2024 Nobel Prize in Chemistry was shared by researchers who actually used AI to predict protein structures and even design entirely new ones from scratch. That's a massive breakthrough enabled by AI.
That is incredible. What are some other recent developments?
Well, we're seeing rapid advances in biomaterials and tissue engineering. There's increasing potential for things like lab-grown organs using 3D bioprinting and advanced regenerative therapies. For example, researchers at Kyoto University and Shinobi Therapeutics are using biologically derived scaffolds, like collagen, for soft tissue repair, optimizing them for stability and reduced immune response. And researchers at Harvard and Ubergene Biosciences achieved a landmark in 2024. They used mRNA lipid nanoparticle technology, similar to some COVID vaccines, to reprogram adult cells directly into induced pluripotent stem cells. This could potentially enable scalable, patient-specific stem cell production for repairing damaged tissues without the ethical concerns of embryonic stem cells.
That's potentially game-changing for regenerative medicine.
It really is. AI, as mentioned, is accelerating R&D across the board. Adaptive Biosystems, for instance, launched a protein engineering foundry that leverages generative AI, open-source software, and synthetic biology tools to develop new medicines, enzymes, and sustainable materials much faster. And CRISPR-based therapies are moving beyond just clinical trials now into actual approved treatments. The FDA approved Casgevy for treating beta thalassemia in January 2024. That was a major milestone for precision medicine using gene editing.
So this is moving from lab to clinic.
Yes, definitely starting to. And even in food, we're seeing cultivated meat grown directly from animal cells in bioreactors getting regulatory approval. Good Meat received U.S. approval to sell cultivated chicken, as did UPS Foods. They even served it at a Michelin star restaurant, though scaling production affordably remains a huge challenge for them.
Right, the cost is still high there.
Very high. But the technology is progressing. What's fascinating here really is the sheer audacity of it all, engineering life itself, from potentially growing replacement organs to designing entirely new proteins with AI for medicines or materials. But of course, with such profound power comes immense ethical and societal questions. Which raises that important question: how do we ensure this truly transformative potential is wielded responsibly, ethically, and equitably for all of humanity, especially when you think about public acceptance and who gets access to these advanced therapies?
Huge ethical considerations. What's the adoption status for bioengineering, according to the report? Is it scaling?
Yes. McKinsey puts this at adoption score 4, meaning scaling in progress. Biotechnology, supercharged by AI, is rapidly scaling across diverse industries: healthcare, agriculture, materials, chemicals. The combination of increasing technological maturity, demonstrated commercial viability in some areas, and that AI-driven acceleration really positions bioengineering for widespread enterprise scaling in the coming years. However, regulation remains a major uncertainty and potential bottleneck. Frameworks are evolving globally, but there's significant variation and uncertainty, especially in how different regions will regulate things like bioengineered food and crops. That creates a complex global landscape for companies to navigate.
So for our listener, thinking about this future of engineering life, what are the big questions to consider?
Well, I think you should ask: how will society ultimately balance the incredible potential benefits of genetic editing technologies with the deep-seated medical ethics concerns and the need for equitable access? That's a fundamental debate. What factors will truly influence public acceptance and adoption of genetically engineered crops and other bioengineered products, like cultivated meat or new biomaterials? Trust and transparency will be key. And how will regulatory frameworks evolve globally to address safety, efficacy, and trust issues around these powerful emerging bioengineering technologies? Getting that right is crucial for responsible innovation.
Profound questions indeed, touching on our very existence and future. Okay, our journey takes us now literally off-planet to the final frontier, commercialize the future of space technologies. It's become really clear, hasn't it, that space is no longer just the domain of governments and astronauts. Commercial players are making it much more accessible. But with that accessibility come new challenges, like managing this new frontier responsibly. So what does this all mean for the very definition of our global, or maybe even interplanetary, reach?
Yeah, the space landscape is changing dramatically. This trend encompasses satellite systems, launch vehicles, plans for space habitats, exploration missions, everything related to operating beyond Earth's atmosphere. Key areas include those large, low Earth orbit LEO satellite constellations for internet, direct-to-device connectivity, integrating space assets with our phones, and increasingly sophisticated Earth observation capabilities.
And it's attracting interest beyond just aerospace companies.
Definitely. What's significant is the broad interest and investment coming from outside the traditional aerospace sector. Private companies are increasingly joining nations in global space activity. We see countries like Japan having successful moon landings, NASA hiring private companies like SpaceX and Blue Origin for its Artemis program to return humans to the moon. But this rapid commercialization brings challenges. Defining ownership and access rights to space itself is complex. Establishing clear governance structures for safe operations is crucial, especially with more and more satellites launching. And managing the growing problem of space debris and traffic is becoming urgent. Plus, there are increasing cyber risks to space assets, which are critical infrastructure now.
Right. Space junk is a real issue. What's driving this commercialization? Is it mainly lower launch costs?
That's a huge driver, yes. The dramatic reduction in launch costs, primarily fueled by reusable rockets pioneered by companies like SpaceX, and also the miniaturization of satellites, has fundamentally changed the economics. SpaceX's Falcon Heavy, for example, brought costs down significantly to around $1,400 per kilogram to LEO. Their next-generation Starship aims to reduce this even further, maybe down to an astonishing $10 to $30 per kilogram eventually, through full reusability and a very high launch cadence.
$10 a kilogram, that's incredible.
It would be revolutionary if achieved. And SpaceX's 2024 Starship flight tests, while still experimental, demonstrated significant steps towards making space travel far more affordable and accessible than ever before. Advances in space communication are also key, expanding global connectivity. We talked about LEO constellations like Starlink and Amazon's Project Kuiper. There's also work on very low Earth orbit VLEO satellites, laser communications between satellites for higher bandwidth, and integrating 5G networks directly with satellite systems. And that direct-to-device satellite connectivity we mentioned is rolling out, like Apple's emergency SOS feature using satellites.
Beyond communication, how are space assets being used with terrestrial data for things like environmental monitoring? And AI seems to be everywhere. I assume it's playing a role in space operations, too.
Yes, that integration is powerful. Companies are combining space-based data like satellite imagery with terrestrial data sets to significantly enhance things like environmental monitoring, precision agriculture, and disaster response. For example, combining satellite imagery with infrared sensors allows for near real-time wildfire detection and tracking. That's incredibly valuable. Advanced Earth observation systems are also transforming data collection. Planet Labs operates a fleet of over 150 small satellites that capture imagery of the entire Earth's landmass almost daily at relatively high resolution. That data is used for tracking deforestation, optimizing crop yields, monitoring infrastructure, responding to disasters, countless applications.
Daily snapshots of the whole planet.
Pretty much, yeah. And AI is definitely playing a growing role in space operations. It's used for increasing efficiency in mission planning, detecting anomalies in spacecraft health, optimizing resource usage on satellites. It also assists with the critical task of collision avoidance, tracking debris, and other satellites. And it's being looked at for on-orbit logistics, like refueling or servicing satellites. LEO Labs, for instance, uses AI-driven radar networks on the ground to track and predict space debris movements with high accuracy.
So what's the adoption status for these space technologies? Is the commercial side really taking off?
McKinsey puts this at adoption score too, so still largely experimentation for the broader commercial sector.
Okay, still early for widespread commercial use then.
Yeah, the private sector is mostly in piloting phases, testing small-scale prototypes and business models. Certain sectors are further along. Of course, energy, materials, telecommunications rely heavily on satellite connectivity and remote sensing already. And space is now recognized as absolutely critical for national defense. So that sector is scaling its use of space technologies rapidly. Geographically, the space economy is still concentrated mainly in China, Europe, and the US, though there's growing interest and investment coming from regions like the Middle East as well.
Okay, so what does this all mean for our next giant leap, as they say? What are the big questions we should be asking ourselves about this future in space?
Well, I think you should consider. How will the space industry collectively address those growing challenges of space debris and traffic management? That's crucial for long-term sustainability. Could breakthroughs in heavy-lift launch capabilities like Starship fundamentally reshape the economics of satellites and space access, potentially forcing incumbent players to completely reinvent their business models? How might the development of commercial space stations or even in-orbit manufacturing capabilities change the economic landscape and open up new possibilities? And maybe the biggest question: will the future of space be defined more by international collaboration, building on things like the International Space Station, or will it be increasingly shaped by geopolitical divergence and competition, especially given rising anti-satellite weapons tests and a lack of universal support for cooperative initiatives like the Artemis Accords? These are the big questions that will shape humanity's presence beyond Earth.
Really fundamental questions about our future path. Okay, finally, let's turn to a trend that really underpins everything we've discussed today, and frankly, our very existence. the future of energy and sustainability technologies. The report talks about powering a green tomorrow. What does this involve, and what are the major challenges it faces right now?
Right. This trend covers a really broad spectrum of innovations, all aimed at transforming the global energy landscape towards a more sustainable and resilient future. It's absolutely critical. The focus is generally on three main pillars: clean electrons, generating electricity from low-carbon sources like renewables and nuclear; electrification, switching end uses like transport and heating to run on that clean electricity; and clean molecules, developing low-carbon fuels like hydrogen or sustainable biofuels for sectors that are hard to electrify. This is arguably one of the most consequential challenges, but also opportunities of our time.
But it's happening against a complex backdrop, right?
Extremely complex. It's unfolding amidst rising geopolitical tensions, shifting energy policies, macroeconomic uncertainty. We're seeing things like tariffs on clean energy components, intense competition for critical minerals needed for batteries and turbines, and significant gaps in the infrastructure needed to support the transition, like grid capacity. And critically, as we've touched upon, the explosive growth of data centers, driven largely by AI, is rapidly increasing electricity demand. That's putting immense pressure on electricity grids that are often already strained.
So demand is going up just as we're trying to change the supply.
Exactly. And the goal isn't just decarbonization anymore. The report talks about a triple objective: ensuring these new energy systems are not only low carbon, but also affordable, reliable, and globally competitive. That's a tough balancing act. There are also fundamental innovation challenges still remaining for some key breakthrough technologies to become cost-effective, reliable, and scalable. Plus, supply chain bottlenecks, labor shortages for installation and maintenance, and sometimes lengthy regulatory delays for new projects.
You mentioned the data center demand. How big a factor is that? And what other developments are key?
The electricity demand surge is significant, and data centers are indeed one of the largest drivers globally right now. It really highlights the urgent need for reliable, low-emission power systems that can scale quickly. Challenges include ensuring flexibility renewables are intermittent, so you need ways to balance the grid, like energy storage or flexible baseload power. And there are economic hurdles, too. In Texas, for example, we're seeing gas peaker plants which can turn on quickly being deployed alongside large battery energy storage systems to handle peak demand periods when renewables might not be available. Beyond electricity, hydrogen is increasingly viewed as an important option for decarbonizing those hard-to-abate sectors, like heavy industry or long-haul transport. Advances in electrolyzer technology, the machines that make hydrogen from water using electricity and integrating them with low-cost renewables, are improving hydrogen's outlook. And nuclear power is also experiencing something of a resurgence in interest globally due to its ability to provide stable, carbon-free baseload electricity. Around 31 countries have committed to tripling global nuclear energy capacity by 2050. Small modular reactors, or SMRs, offer potential to lower costs and accelerate deployment compared to traditional large nuclear plants, though they're still mostly in development.
All right, SMRs are talked about a lot.
They are. So this whole energy transition raises that really important question. The future of energy isn't just about the sources, right? It's about creating an entire system that is reliable, affordable, and sustainable, even while dealing with these surging new demands from things like AI data centers. It's an incredibly complex balancing act with profound implications for literally every aspect of our lives.
Absolute fundamental. What's the adoption status for these energy and sustainability technologies overall?
McKinsey rates this cluster at adoption score 4, meaning scaling in progress. So technologies like solar, wind, batteries, EVs, they are rapidly scaling across diverse industries and geographies, though the pace varies.
Okay, scaling is happening. So wrapping this section up, what are the big questions we should be asking ourselves about powering our green future?
I think you should consider what really needs to happen technologically, financially, politically, to effectively scale up the key clean energy technologies needed to meet climate goals. It's not just about invention, it's about deployment. How will geopolitics continue to affect the global energy transition, especially concerning the supply chains for critical minerals like lithium, cobalt, rare earths? That's a major point of friction. What's the right balance between investing in scaling existing, proven solutions versus betting on breakthrough innovations like nuclear fusion or advanced SMRs, which might have higher potential but also higher risk and longer timelines, and maybe most practically for many organizations. How can companies navigate the complex, often conflicting trade-offs between energy security, affordability for consumers and businesses, and long-term environmental sustainability? Finding that optimal path is the defining challenge of our global energy future.
Absolute defining challenges. Okay, wow. We've covered a truly dizzying amount of ground today, diving deep into McKinsey's Baker's Dozen of frontier technologies for 2025. From agentic AI, potentially becoming your virtual coworker, to breakthroughs in bioengineering, literally rewriting life. And from the mind-bending possibilities of the quantum realm to the commercialization of space. It's just crystal clear that innovation's accelerating at an unprecedented pace.
It really is. And as we explored all these distinct trends, several cross-cutting themes definitely emerged, didn't they? Weaving through almost all the discussions. First, there's the undeniable rise of autonomous systems. We saw it everywhere. From physical robots in warehouses adapting to tasks, to digital agents handling complex workflows online. These systems are rapidly moving beyond just pilot projects into practical application, constantly learning, adapting, and collaborating in new ways.
Autonomy was everywhere. And hand in hand with that, it felt like, was the emergence of new human-machine collaboration models. We're seeing more natural interfaces, voice, gesture, multimodal inputs, AI systems adapting more intelligently to users. The narrative seems to be shifting away from just human replacement toward human augmentation, right? Making people and these intelligent systems truly co-creators in getting work done.
Exactly. Augmentation, not just automation.
Mm-hmm.
Another crucial theme, though, was scaling challenges. The sheer surging demand for compute-intensive workloads driven by AI, robotics, immersive environments is placing immense pressure on our global infrastructure. We kept hitting constraints, power limitations, network vulnerabilities, supply chain delays for critical components like chips, labor shortages for skilled workers, regulatory friction slowing things down. Scaling these technologies now requires solving not just the technical problems, but also these messy real-world challenges in talent, policy, logistics, and execution.
That came up again and again. We also saw intensified regional and national competition. It seems countries and corporations are really doubling down on building sovereign infrastructure, promoting localized technology initiatives, partly to reduce geopolitical risk, yes, but also, frankly, to own the next wave of value creation themselves. It feels like a new era of tech-driven global competition, and it's really shaping where the future is being built.
That's a very important point. Yet, interestingly, at the same time, scale and specialization seem to be growing simultaneously. You have this rapid growth in massive general-purpose infrastructure like huge data centers for training giant AI models. But alongside that, you have accelerating innovation happening right at the edge with lower power, more specialized technology embedded in everyday devices and specific applications. So leaders are trying to balance the centralized scale with more localized control and customization. Think things like modular microgrids for clean energy or bespoke robotics designed for very niche manufacturing tasks. It's not either.
That's a great insight, scale and specialization together. And finally, a theme that truly felt like it underpinned everything: the absolute necessity of responsible innovation imperatives. As these technologies become more powerful, more autonomous, more personal, trust is increasingly the gatekeeper to adoption, isn't it? There's growing pressure from the public, from regulators, even from investors for transparency, fairness, accountability, and everything from how AI models are trained to how gene editing is used. Ethics are no longer just a nice-to-have consideration. They're strategic levers that can genuinely accelerate or completely stall scaling, investment, and the long-term impact of these powerful technologies.
Well said. Trust as the ultimate gatekeeper.
Brad, this has been an absolutely incredible journey through the 2025 tech frontier. We've covered so much today, from those virtual coworkers and maybe even flying cars someday, to engineering life itself and reaching for the stars again commercially. It truly feels like a moment of unprecedented change, maybe even disruption. Our aim with this deep dive, really, was to take all this complex information from the McKinsey report and distill it down into actionable insights, maybe some surprising facts, giving you, our listener, the unique perspective to feel truly well-informed, hopefully without the usual overwhelm.
And if we try to connect all these dots one last time, looking at the bigger picture, I think the true power, the real transformation, comes not just from the individual breakthroughs in each of these trends, but in their profound combination and interplay. The AI revolution is driving the need for those advanced semiconductors and better connectivity. which in turn enable more sophisticated robotics, more realistic immersive realities, faster breakthroughs in bioengineering. And all of this demands new levels of digital trust and cybersecurity and fundamentally new sustainable energy solutions to power it all. They're all interconnected. Which maybe raises one final important question for you listening. How will you leverage these insights, this understanding of the interconnected frontiers, to not just adapt to the future that's unfolding all around us, but to actively shape it in your own career, your business, or even just your life?
That's the challenge, isn't it? Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive into the 2025 tech frontier. Keep asking those big questions, keep digging deeper into the areas that fascinate you, and keep shaping the future with what you've learned today. Until next time, stay curious.